This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, home of the Landmark College Institute for Research and Training, working to discover innovative strategies and practices to improve teaching and learning in the field of learning disabilities. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College. We teach differently.
The other empowering message that we can give them is that there is value in making mistakes.
Yes.
That even when they make mistakes, they're growing their brain, and that is part of the process. We tell them there's the idea of productive struggle, and we tell them that if they are feeling slightly uncomfortable with the material, then that is kind of the sweet point where they need to be when we're introducing material to them. That's a sign to them that their brain is growing, and that's a good sign.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. Today, I have two very special guests that I met by accident. A few weeks ago, I was out in Chicago at the Central States Independent School Conference. It's a huge conference, many talks. And I gave a talk, but then I had time to wander into other people's talks, which is really fun for me. I love when I can become the consumer instead of the provider. And so I looked at this vast array of possibilities, and they were all juicy, low-hanging fruit. And I thought, which one should I go into? And I settled on this presentation by two women I'd never heard of, and but they were third grade teachers, which gave them instant credibility, in my opinion. Teachers, just particularly third grade teachers, they don't lie, and they work hard. And for them to stand up and give a presentation, I just knew it would be good, and I was right. They're both teachers at the Hallowell Brown School, which is like the best school in town in Cleveland, Shaker Heights. And these two teachers represent that school very well. They were articulate, smart, but funny, humble, flexible, curious. They were just phenomenal. They gave a fantastic – and, I have ADD, so I can't sit through a presentation for much more than 6 minutes unless it really grabs me. And this one really grabbed me. They were talking about the growth mindset, which most of you have heard of, but some of you haven't, and I'll leave it to them to explain it from there. But these days, it's one of the great advances in psychology, Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset. But a lot of people have heard of it, and they kind of know what it means. But then how do you use it? That's the real question. And that's the question I invited these two wonderful women to talk with me. So I'm just going to hand it over to them, Darrah Parsons and Becky Kline. Darrah Parsons and Becky Kline. Remember those names. And they're at the Hallowell Brown School in Shaker Heights, Ohio. Welcome to Distraction.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
We were so excited to have you stumble into our presentation. It was quite exciting for us and to see your presentations as well. So I'm, as you said, a third grade teacher here at Hallowell Brown School. I'm Darrah. And this is my fourth year teaching here. I've been a parent here a while. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. So Becky and I started working together 4 years ago. We both were able to come into third grade at the same time, so it was a really nice way to build our curriculum together.
Hello, and I'm Becky Kline, and I've been teaching at Hallowell Brown for 7 years now and have two daughters, both in college.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, jargon-free, what is this growth mindset, and how does a teacher or a parent use it?
Well, I would say just very simply, the growth mindset is believing that you can develop your own abilities, that you're not born with a set amount of abilities, that's all you get, and you can't change it. With the growth mindset, you can develop into, your talent and your abilities. You're not born a math person or a writer that if with hard work and with good mentoring from teachers, that you can, achieve at high levels. And then the opposite of that would be the fixed mindset, where you believe your qualities are just set in stone and you get what you get, and there isn't a whole lot you can do in that way. Or sort of the flip side of it is you have a fixed mindset and you think you're great at everything and that you don't need to get any better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we've all heard that it helps if you think you can do something, but Carol Dweck pretty much proved that it's true, right?
Right. She had a really great experiment where she had two groups of students and gave them the same challenging task, but praised one set for how hard they worked and the other how smart they were. And when they were presented with other challenges after that, they were presented with a really hard task that was almost impossible to complete, and the kids that were praised on their process and their hard work wound up taking on that challenge more, and versus the group that was praised just on how smart they were very discouraged by it. And when they were given a third task that was very similar to the first task that they completed, both groups, or the group that had that were praised for being smart, did significantly worse than they did on the first try, because they had been, discouraged and thought that they just had sort of lost their ability to do these tasks. Whereas the group that were praised on their hard work and the way they worked together actually did better than they did on the first task. So it was kind of this eye-opening experience.
So it's sort of like the old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So if that's true, and now we can say it's been proven to be true, how do you as a teacher, or by extrapolation as a parent, instill that in your students or your children?
Well, I would say about 3 years ago, when Darrah and I really started following the ideas of Carol Dweck and reading her book, Mindset, we realized that even before we really wanted to bring this exciting message to our students, we also realized to have them buy in to this idea. We wanted to show them and explain to our third graders some of the new brain research that had precipitated this whole idea of mindset. Mm-hmm. And so we actually created what we labeled as a social studies unit at the beginning of our school year to teach the kids about growth mindset, and we start that with a couple sessions on teaching them about the brain. We also have been studying with Jo Boaler. We went out to her course out at Stanford, and she has some fantastic resources for kids to explain how the brain works through videos. And so we explained to our third graders how this brain research that has been, we cite them a couple of two major studies that even our third graders find really fascinating. One about the taxi cab driver test in London, and then another study about a little girl here in the United States who surgically had half her brain removed and was able to experience almost a full recovery. And that really captures their interest.
Tell us about the taxi cab study.
That is a study where London taxi cab drivers are required to take a 2-year course before they can take a test to be certified as a cab driver in London. And they're required to memorize over 25,000 routes in and around the city of London. And researchers in the early 2000s took imagery of their brain before the test and before the course, the 2-year course, and after the 2-year course, and they determined that their brain, they could measure that their brain experienced significant growth during that time period. And it was really one of the first studies that they could prove through this imagery of what they suspected, that even as adults, people can grow their brain. So our message to our students is that they are born with a brain, but their brain is not set. It's very much like a muscle that mm-hmm. they can grow and strengthen. And we use analogies for the kids, much like how they become better in their sport or their dance or their music through practice, that through practice here at school, they can grow their brain.
And it's true. It's such good news.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. Other things you do with your students?
Well, once we have them buy into and understand some of the brain research, then we educate them on the idea, the concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And there's some wonderful books out there that we use with our age group that I would say is appropriate for grades 3 through 5. And then there is also some excellent resources for middle school and high school students as well that I haven't personally experienced, but some of the resources are actually offered on Carol Dweck's website that she offers.
Okay.
And I have to say, they really do take to the message. It's a very empowering message for that age group where they're, the third grade being that transition from kind of that K through 2 and entering into those higher level grades, that they have control of their learning. It's not just teachers standing there and giving them information, but that they can work hard and they can, grow their brain. And it's something that they definitely take to heart. It's something that when my daughter was in Becky's class, both my daughters, Lillian and Juliet, have always wanted me to French braid their hair, and it's something that I had never tried. I said I can't do it, and my third grader, after she had Becky in class, came up to me and said, "Mom, I want you to French braid my hair." And I said, "I can't. I just can't do it. It's not something I can do. I'm just not good at those things." And she said, "Well, that's a fixed mindset, and you taught us about fixed to growth mindset, so you need to grow your brain." So we watched a lot of YouTube braiding videos, and after, and she would tell me, "Mom, your brain's growing." Whenever I would get frustrated, she said, "You're challenging yourself, you're growing your brain." And now I can say she has beautiful French braids almost every day at school.
That is such a great story where she says, "Mom, that's not very growth mindset of you."
I know. I felt like I was set up a little bit.
And you learned how to do it.
I learned, and I did, and I use it every year with my students. I say, girls, don't say you can't do something. You can learn, you can try, and I tell them the story, and I said, we don't just tell you these things. We believe in them, and we go through the same thing as adults. It's not, you don't get to a point in your life where you say, "I'm done. That's it. I'm done, learning and growing." So
it's like the kid who says, I'm bad at math, or
exactly,
right.
or I can't hit a baseball.
Yes.
So it's not just academic stuff, right?
No, not at all. I think it's, we're lucky at Hathaway Brown to have many different offerings for the kids and many different pathways they can take. And, we definitely encourage the girls to try lots of different things. And we don't want them to sort of opt out of something, not try something because they don't think they're a music person or they don't think they're, a language person or a math person, whichever pursuit they want. We want them to try it because, that they can get better. And it's not to say they're going to become world famous musicians or athletes or actresses, but that they can get better themselves.
Right.
That they can learn and grow and develop.
Yeah, no, it's so empowering. It's and the fact that it's true, it's not just a slogan.
Right. The other empowering message that we can give them is that there is value in making mistakes.
Yes.
That even when they make mistakes, they're growing their brain, and that is part of the process. There's value in that. We even use we tell them there's the idea of productive struggle. And because we have a pretty challenging curriculum in third grade, and we tell them that at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. And we tell them that if they are feeling slightly uncomfortable with the material, then that is kind of the sweet point where they need to be when we're introducing material to them. That's a sign to them that their brain is growing, and that's a good sign. We tell them we don't want them to always feel that way, that eventually we want them to be able to master the material so we can move on to something new, but to get comfortable with that. And we even hear the girls telling each other, "Don't get frustrated, your brain's growing."
Oh, that's so great. And it's sort of like you don't want to lift weights that are too light for you.
Right, and we explain that too, that while it might seem like doing math sheets that are so easy for you, you don't you can get them done quickly might seem fun for a little bit, but that's not, you're not learning, you're not growing, you're not getting better, so that you do need to challenge yourself, that you shouldn't just stay at one level and just do it because, it's easy. That doesn't help you, that doesn't grow your brain.
And do they begin to buy into that? Do they begin to say, okay, bring it on?
Yes, they do. And that's also where the sports analogy or music or dance analogy helps, because we tell them, you wouldn't sign up for tennis lessons and expect your coach after the first lesson to put you in at the championship tournament. Mm-hmm. You have to work up to that. You have to build up to that. But they do take on a much more, their attitude towards challenges are different, and they are willing to stick with their endurance and to stick with math problems or even writing. We have a pretty rigorous writing program in third grade, and up through K through 2, it's very developmentally appropriate that they're encouraged by their writing. Their teachers are telling them they come up with great ideas. They're really expressing themselves. But we find by the time they get to third grade, we really need to structure that writing a little bit more, and we're in a position where we have to tell them that's not quite right or you're not there yet. And we tell them, when you get your writing back, there's going to be a lot of suggestions and ideas of how to improve. And sometimes that's hard for them to hear. But with the introduction of this growth mindset, they're much more receptive. They take those suggestions in a much different way. They're appreciative of it because they see it's going to help them get to the goal of where we want them to be by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important, too, because we definitely give them the message that we're here, it's our job to teach them the things they need to learn. We don't expect them to get magically to the end of being able to write beautiful paragraphs without our mentoring, without our feedback, without our help. I think there are times where a growth mindset is just sort of thrown out there, that it's try hard, work hard, but there has to be that mentoring piece and that scaffolding, that they can't do it on their own. And I think for parents or teachers, it's important to realize the role that you have in cultivating that growth mindset, that it's not just on the children. It's not just whether they have a growth or fixed mindset and that determines how well they're going to learn something, but that it's our job as the adult in their life to help get them there. And I think, at least in our classroom, it's a better buy-in when, we show them a rubric, or we give them a learning objective we would like them to accomplish, and say, it's my job to get you from, where you are now to where we would like you to be, and it's a partnership. I'm going to give you the information, I'm going to give you the feedback, and you need to, work hard and develop your skills along with that.
It's like you'll give them the tools and they do the work.
Right. It's not just whether or not they have a fixed or growth mindset.
Right.
And that determines it. But that there is a role for the teacher in the curriculum, also giving them the curriculum that you're developing needs to welcome the opportunity to use a growth mindset.
One of the things I liked so much about your talk was you stressed the importance of challenging and always... one of the best things that ever happened to me was in the 12th grade. My 12th grade English teacher, I handed in a 3-page story in September, and he handed it back and said, "Why don't you turn this into a novel?" And I thought, holy moly, I knew he was a hard teacher. I didn't know I had to write a novel. But I was secretly flattered because I was the only kid he challenged to do that. And lo and behold, by the end of the year, I'd written a novel. It won the senior English prize. But more than that, it got me to prove to myself that I could do something I would have thought was impossible.
And I think that definitely is true, especially for students that are, we have obviously a spectrum of students and where they fall and whether they have learning disabilities or, ADHD. It's a very powerful thing for them that giving them these messages that we have high expectations for everyone.
Yes.
And that when we give them a lot of one-on-one feedback and talking and saying, I believe in you. You can do this.
Yep.
Are you going to work with me to get this done? And they're so sometimes grateful to have someone there that does think they can do it. And it's not just work hard that's all we really expect from you is to work hard, but not just work hard, but also achieve.
Right. And then you get them to prove to themselves they can do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's so, and I bet it's so important to get this message, or this, it's not a message, it's an experience, because they're not just learning a message, they're developing an experience. To get it in there young.
Absolutely.
Third grade, wow.
And they're very receptive to it. I can imagine that initially some people may think, well, that seems kind of young to introduce that concept or explain some brain research to them, but they find it fascinating. And third grade students are such an enthusiastic bunch that they are so willing to learn and interested in so many things. It's just it's a excellent time to introduce the concept to them.
So third grade, it's and you can just see them light up, I bet.
Absolutely. That's what makes teaching so fun.
Yeah. So you take a kid at the beginning of third grade who maybe thinks, he or she can't do much. Well, you have all girls, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So a girl who thinks she can't do much, whatever it might happen to be, by the end of the year, she's beaming.
Exactly.
Because of what she's done. I mean, she's achieved.
Right. And you're really fostering that self-motivation.
Yes.
We don't really, it's especially with third graders, a lot of times they want to please their teacher or please their parents, which is very endearing, but the ultimate goal is for them to be self-motivated so that they're proud of their work and that it's an internal drive, not an external one.
Yes, and the joy of achieving something that's difficult.
Exactly. Yeah. If we could instill that, our job is done.
Yeah.
Because then they have endless opportunities to achieve at that point.
They're set for life, in my opinion. That when you've experienced that, when you've felt it and done it, God, you're unstoppable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we want for our girls.
Oh, that's wonderful. I knew I loved you guys listening to you, and I love you once again. This is just, it's so freeing, empowering, and things like IQ or height or family income or all of those things, don't matter. What matters is that you take on a challenge and rise to it, and, you'll discover you can do more than you ever thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's contagious. I think once you feel it in one area, then it spills over into other things.
Yeah. Boy, you guys are just wonderful. How, if one of our listeners wanted to be in touch with you, I know you're not out in the public, but is there? Would you send them to what should they do?
They could certainly contact us by our email.
Okay, great.
Our school email. We'd be happy to give that on the air.
Great, go ahead.
So mine would be B Kline, Kline, at hb.edu.
And mine is the Parsons, Parsons, at hb.edu.
HB for Hathaway Brown. I'm telling you, listeners, these two women, they know their stuff. If you have a girl or a boy in elementary school, these two women are, brilliant, and they get it, and they're in the trenches, and they're so committed. Not many teachers are as committed. Well, many teachers are committed, but these two women are really wonderful. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Darrah Parsons and Becky Kline. Thank you for introducing our listeners to the growth mindset in a practical way. It's one of the most freeing and empowering concepts to come up in psychology in a long, long time. That, along with neuroplasticity from the neurosciences, we've really proven that as individuals, and there's no age limit to it, that as individuals we can learn and grow by applying ourselves and getting the right guidance. This is just terrific. Thank you so much. I truly very, very grateful to you both.
Oh, well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a wonderful holiday season.
You too.
Take
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Weren't they wonderful? I don't know. I just I light up when I talk to people who I just know are gifted at what they do, and these two women are just in the business of helping these kids in such a practical way. These kids will probably forget their third grade teachers, But the impact that these two women will have on these girls in the third grade at Hathaway Brown, once you develop the belief that you can do something and then you prove it to yourself by doing something that you would have thought was impossible, like me writing a novel in my 12th grade year, that stays with you forever. That experience has stayed with me forever. The teacher, Fred Tremallow, has stayed with me forever. He's in heaven now. But if you can get that in, and it's, it's backed up by the fact of neuroplasticity, it's so freeing and empowering. And regardless of your IQ, your education, your age, it just doesn't matter. The sky's the limit. And that's not Tony Robbins, much as I respect Tony Robbins, that's not a motivational talk. It's scientific fact. And it does provide motivation, but and these two women, it's just heartwarming. They work in the third grade. They're not getting a lot of attention. They're not being paid a lot. But boy, they are so rewarded in what they do every day. They're wealthy in the ways that really, really count. Obviously, I'm over the top for this kind of thing because it's so real and practical and optimistic and empowering. Give us your feedback. We're always looking for your feedback in this growing community of the Distraction Podcast. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell thanking you for listening. Tell your friends about us, please. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Okay, remember to reach out to us directly with your comments and questions. Email us at connect@distractionpodcast.com or leave us a voicemail by calling 844-55-CONNECT. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our producer is the wonderfully imaginative and dedicated Sarah Gurton. Our sound engineer is the brilliant, adept Scott Person. And our music theme was created by Mark Berman.